Right off the bat today, we're diving into a case that asks a seriously chilling question. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you never, ever questioned a single thing they asked you to do? Well, 24-year-old Ethan Parker did, and he did it despite the growing, flashing warning signs from his friends and family. Ethan just had this absolutely unwavering belief that the woman he loved would never, ever hurt him. It's heartbreaking, really, because just 3 days after what looked like a totally normal, average afternoon, his name was suddenly making national headlines. When investigators actually started digging into the details, they didn't just find a tragic accident, they uncovered a relationship that had slowly morphed into a fatal obsession. So stick with us here, because we're going to map out the exact timeline, right down to the shocking courtroom moment at the end that completely reframed this whole tragedy. Let's set the scene a bit. Ethan Parker lived in a quiet little town just outside Seattle, working at a local construction company. Ask anyone who knew him, and they'll give you the exact same 3 words: honest, hardworking, and fiercely loyal. I mean, if you needed a hand, Ethan was literally the first guy to show up. Now, about 2 years prior to all this, he met Khloe Bennett. And honestly, she seemed like the perfect counterbalance to him. As you can see laid out here, while he was the honest, hardworking guy, she was funny, confident, and super outgoing. Things accelerated really quickly, and within just a few months, they were totally inseparable. But when we actually analyze the timeline of their relationship, we start to see this really slow, insidious shift. Khloe developed this constant, almost exhausting need for reassurance. She'd repeatedly ask Ethan, "Do you really love me?" And, what started off as a harmless, maybe even sweet question, soon evolved into some pretty bizarre demands. Looking at the case files, there is a clear, escalating pattern of control, all masquerading as proof of his love. First, it was demanding he cancel plans with his buddies. Then, it escalated to isolating himself from specific coworkers. And eventually, she demanded full access to his phone. And Ethan, well, he just complied, without a single hesitation. The crazy part is, no amount of proof was ever enough. Every time he demonstrated his loyalty, it just birthed a brand new test. His best friend Ryan actually sat him down and warned him, saying, "Ethan, this isn't love anymore." But Ethan just laughed it off. He brushed it aside, insisting that no one understood Khloe like he did. So this whole dynamic really culminated on a sunny Saturday afternoon. Khloe invited Ethan out to this small riverside park for a surprise. And by all accounts, she appeared incredibly happy that day. They were talking, laughing. For a fleeting moment, everything probably felt entirely normal again. But then, out of nowhere, Khloe proposed what she called one last trust test. Ethan just kind of laughed and asked what it was. She reasoned that, hey, if they're going to spend their lives together, there should absolutely never be any secrets between them. To Ethan, I'm sure it just sounded like another harmless hoop to jump through, so he agreed to it. Now, that afternoon ended without incident, but the timeline takes a massive, sharp turn later that evening. Ethan called his mom, complaining about a sudden, intense illness. She figured, okay, it's probably just a bad stomach bug. But by the next morning, his condition had catastrophically deteriorated, and he was rushed straight to the hospital. Despite the absolutely desperate efforts of the doctors, and with his stunned family and friends pacing outside, Ethan passed away. The entire town was just left reeling. I mean, how does a perfectly healthy 24-year-old guy deteriorate so suddenly? Initially, authorities thought, okay, maybe this is just a tragic, super aggressive medical emergency. But as investigators started mapping out his final healthy hours, a glaring anomaly popped up in the timeline. Everyone who had seen Ethan pointed back to only one person who saw him during those final hours: Khloe. When detectives began interviewing their inner circle, this incredibly dark picture of control started to emerge. Multiple witnesses backed up the stories of Khloe's obsession with testing his loyalty. One coworker even distinctly recalled an exhausted Ethan confessing to him, "Sometimes I feel like I'm always taking another test." It was the digital forensics that absolutely blew this case wide open. Hidden right there among thousands of ordinary text, investigators found a relentless, exhausting pattern: manufactured arguments, constant demands for proof of fidelity, and intense emotional coercion. It was a stark, almost scary contrast to their perfect, curated social media presence. Just take a look at the stark contradictions we've laid out here. On one hand, Khloe maintained this perfectly calm demeanor, insisting that they had a wonderful,
totally normal afternoon. But the digital evidence? It told a completely different story. Witness statements clashed with their timeline, phone records put people in contradictory locations, and security cameras filled in some truly damning missing pieces.
As the investigation deepened, this case sparked a massive national debate. And right in the middle of this huge media frenzy, Ethan's mother released a single heartbreaking statement that went totally viral. She said, "My son believed kindness could fix everything. Sometimes kindness meets the wrong person." It just captures the tragedy so perfectly, doesn't it? Months later, the trial kicked off in a completely packed courtroom, and the legal battle lines were clearly drawn. The prosecution framed the timeline as this undeniable case of lethal obsession and control. Meanwhile, the defense pushed back hard, arguing that there was absolutely no malicious intent to harm him whatsoever. Now, this trial wasn't like a movie. There were no dramatic outbursts or sudden shocking confessions on the stand. It was just a slow, methodical, days-long presentation of a relationship's toxic decay. Following some seriously lengthy deliberations, the jury finally delivered their verdict. It closed the legal chapter for sure, but obviously it can never bring Ethan back. Right after that, outside the courthouse, Ethan's father addressed the media. He spoke for less than a minute. And you know what? He completely sidestepped any talk of anger or revenge. Instead, he offered this incredibly powerful warning to anyone listening. He said, if you ever feel like someone keeps asking you to prove your love, stop. He finished it by saying, real love doesn't demand endless tests. It gives trust. Those specific words resonated instantly. I mean, they spread like wildfire across global news networks and social media platforms, reaching millions of people who really needed to hear it. And that quote struck such a massive chord because it hit on a really crucial psychological truth. Control and fear, constant testing, they are the literal opposites of love. A healthy relationship is supposed to make you feel safe. It shouldn't leave you utterly exhausted, feeling like a lab rat in someone else's science experiment. So what does this all mean for us? Well, if this explainer teaches us anything, it's the fatal danger of brushing off those early warning signs. The most dangerous red flags, they almost never appear all at once. They seep in slowly, just one small test at a time, until it's already too late and the trap is fully closed. I really want to hear your thoughts on this one down in the comments. Seriously, what do you think is the absolute biggest relationship red flag that people just tend to ignore? Let's talk about it. And hey, if you appreciate this kind of deep dive explainer, make sure to hit subscribe for more true crime style stories just like this.